Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this EDC Coffee Chat. We are very happy to have our friend and partner, Kevin Gallacci, on with us today from Clallam Transit. And he's going to be sharing with us the investments and the direction that Clallam Transit is going to be taking going forward. A few housekeeping details. If you'll put yourself on mute, please, so we don't inadvertently pick up any background noise. And if you want to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand, or you can put your question in the chat and we'll get to it that way, whichever you prefer. So with that, Kevin, go ahead, take it away.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. So you can see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Looks
perfect.
great.
Well, Lori yesterday had sent me an email and mentioned me talking a little bit about myself, which I'm just gonna in my retirement here, so I'll just be brief with that, hopefully. But of course, if I'm sure everybody knows by now, if you haven't heard, I'm retiring June 30th, and that'll be roughly about 39 years with Clallam Transit. And funny enough, I took a job, a summertime temporary job through a hiring agency, I think Olympic Job Training Center, back in 1984, in between my first and second year of college. I was going to college to be a diesel mechanic, and then I was going to go on to heavy machinery operating school out of the area. And so I had two temporary assignments of 90 days. They extended me another 90 days. And then in 85, they had the position budgeted for facilities maintenance attendant, is what I started out as. And I was successful in applying for that position, and actually became a transit employee in November of 84. Transit was nice enough to work my full-time schedule around my full-time school for that second year. So I was able to complete my education there and get my degree. Also, they spent, X amount of dollars on engine rebuilds at the college for me to actually rebuild engines, and which was a little bit scary because at the time that they were about $5,000, and I really couldn't provide any warranty with that. So, but they ended up being good engines and last a long time in the buses. I was very appreciative that they trusted me to do that, because kind of a big deal. But anyway, throughout my 20s, I was a maintenance worker, but I also was a mechanic for the school district. I had Kevco truck and auto repair on the side. I also had a little excavating business going on until I got about 28 and 30, and they opened up I was just about ready to leave transit and go out and do my own thing. And then they opened up a supervisor job here just before building this facility up here in the truck route. And I applied for that. It was competitive. There was like 12 other people throughout the state that were interviewed, and I was successful in that. And moving forward from that point on, I ran the maintenance department. In 2000, I became the manager. And so I spent that time up until 2017, when this position opened up, and I applied for general manager, and here I am. Loved my maintenance work. I just had gone through 2 GMs over a period of time, and thought there were things I could do better here and bring some of my leadership skills to the top here, and have that expand through the whole organization. So I think I accomplished that. So I love a lot of things about what I do here at Clallam Transit, and the organization is a great place to work. But I'm ready for a change, and I just want some of my own time. And so that's why I'm moving on. So, and because I can. So, but I'm not done working. I've like I said, I've got many other talents, and I'm going to be doing some work here and there, but not full time and on my schedule. So enough about me. So so get to my slides here. So Clallam Transit, our mission statement and vision statement, which we put together with a consultant back in 2018 when I became general manager. Our mission statement is to enhance the quality of life, bolster mobility, and create opportunities through public transit. And our vision statement is provide customer-friendly, reliable, economical, and efficient transportation services that encourage residents and visitors to select Clallam Transit System as an integral part of their routine transportation choices. And I still think that the mission and vision statement applies today, and it's actually what we try to live by with the services we provide. And I will say the tourists act visitors to the area is growing every month, it seems like, especially with our straight shot and our Hurricane Ridge service. So we get that back up and running. I just want to kind of give an overview on where transit started, and then our funding sources, and just some of the projects and things we've got coming up, and some of the things we're working on right now. As a lot of people are unaware of what's going on here at Transit. We just quietly do what we do at times, and don't really even get a lot of comments at board meetings and stuff unless it's about customer service or passengers that use our service. So the Transit was formed in 1979, and we're a public transit benefit area, and we do business as Clallam Transit System. And there's a specific RCW for the benefit areas that we work under, which is different than county and state statute. We are partially funded by 0.6% of the sales tax that was approved by voters of Clallam County. Originally, we were at 0.3%, and then the state matched us with MVET tax, the motor vehicle excise tax. Well, when Initiative 695 went through, that took away that funding. So we had to go out to the public, and we were able to restore that 0.3% back to 6%. And we do have the authority to ask for up to 9.9%. But as you'll see later in the presentation, that doesn't look like that's going to be necessary for quite some time. We used to also live within our 0.6% with costs rising over the years. We're way above that now. Our expenses are way above that amount, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. So one big thing we did back in '84.
Hey, question on that, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this 0.6% sales tax, is that for any purchases across all of Clallam County? And when was that last voted on?
That was, yes, that is. That's Clallam County, part of the Clallam County sales tax. And that was voted on, I believe, in 98 or 99.
Huh.
So 79 was the 0.3, which the state matched with the MVET. And then after 695, we did a campaign. We were prepared to cut services by about 50%, and the voters approved another 0.3%.
Okay. And that never has to be, there's no sunset for it?
No.
Okay.
No. And we could actually, ask for a 0.1 and go to 0.7, but like I said, you'll see that there's no need to do that in the near future.
Gotcha.
So we annexed in the West End in 1984. So when we started out, there were just 12 buses that kind of ran around locally here and out to Squim, and their real ridership was started out pretty small. It's just a small scale operation. When we brought the West End in, that really started to boom the ridership at that time. We currently travel 2.2 million miles a year through all of our modes, which we have fixed route, paratransit, microtransit, and ride share services. Right now, we have approximately 120-ish vehicles in our fleet. We're usually running about 100, but we just bought a whole bunch of used minivans from King County Metro, and because we're unable to replace more out vehicles in our rideshare fleet because of supply. And then we also here last year reduced the fee for riders to promote that ridership, and so we've been expanding that service quite rapidly. And so rideshare is basically a worker driver program. So example is it's mostly used by prison guards that you'll see vans parked at Safeway or Rite Aid or whatever. They actually park their vehicles there. The prison guard drives the van. They go out to work at the prison, bring it back, park it there. We maintain it, take care of all the costs, and they pay a monthly fee for that. So that that's their driver. That's not our driver. So it's basically leasing a vehicle. Works out very well. We have Port Angeles to Forks. The Coast Guard uses it. Port Angeles to Neah Bay, and then we have Forks to Clearwater and Forks to Clallam Bay as well. So in that mode. We currently employ 96 folks here, and our target is 106. And I say target is 106. That's what we're trying to get to so that we can do our service expansion. I'll talk a little bit about. We have been just kind of hovering right around 96. We, 15 years ago, I could have done an operator recruitment and probably hired 10 people at one time. That doesn't happen these days, where we get onesies and twosies, and then 3 leave, and then we hire 3, and then 2 more leave. So it's just an ongoing cycle here. So, and then the average age of our employees is 52, if that matters to anybody. Our pre-pandemic ridership averaged 850,000 boardings per year prior to the pandemic. And we are recovering. We are one of the few transits that maintained full service throughout the pandemic and still today. Other transits have not got back to that level yet, but our ridership last year was only 544,901. And so that number's up and continuing to grow. Paratransit really took a dump, and it's probably about 60% right now. So I kind of think that some of the folks that use paratransit might have found other ways to get their groceries and other things like that, that they were actually taking buses to get those services, and they were forced to maybe get home deliveries and things like that. So that may have continued with them as just a hunch there. A little bit about our revenue. So our total revenue for 23 and our budget is 16 million, a little over 16 million. Our expenditures are just under 16 million. Currently, we have $19 million of undesignated funds. We usually have about $6 million of undesignated funds, but thanks to CRISA, CARES, and ARPA, the federal government sent transits. What do we have there? About 15 point some million dollars that we put towards our service, and then our sales tax revenue was coming in about 1.5 million to the positive during that time, and so that loaded up our reserves quite a bit. We're not sending it back. I don't totally agree with that amount of money just being sent to transit, but this is going to sustain transit for should be for years to come. We do have an expansion plan sitting on the shelf, which is going to require more employees. And we have a lot of projects coming up, and zero emissions, quite frankly, is a huge expense. So this is going to help us get there in the future. So the good thing about that too, you probably won't see this organization going out for a sales tax increase for quite some time, unless things will really go the other direction. So I talked about our 0.6% sales tax that we receive. So currently that's about 70% of our revenue to operate our service. Fare revenue is about 4%. It used to be about 12, but we went youth fare free last year, and so that dropped it down quite a bit. We operate off of about 25% of federal and state operating grants or programs that make up the rest of those operating funds. So a good example is paratransit service. Costs about, for a 4-year period, 2 bienniums, costs just under $10 million to operate paratransit service, which that is a mandated service. So everywhere we run fixed route service, we have to run complimentary paratransit service within a 3/4 miles within our routed service. We've been taking advantage of this grant funding program for the last few years. And just to give you an idea, we with that 10 million, we'll receive about 4.2 million in grant funding through that cycle to support that service.
Hey, Kevin, another
Yes.
question for you about making it so that youth can ride for free. Do you see kids riding by themselves without adults, and has that increased the amount of ridership?
Yes, there's been a lot more youth riding buses, and there's been a few problems built into that too. We've had a lot more people contacting us, wondering where they're looking for their child that they think is missing. We usually wait till the police contact us, because we can't just be posting every time somebody calls us because their child's a couple hours late. But we do look out for you know, if we do get a call, we do try to track somebody down. We'll contact our operators. But this is a state, this was passed by the legislation, and we could have chose not to do this, but the state's supplementing that youth fare free by about $1 million a year to Clallam Transit, which far exceeds the fares that we lose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there is some built-in issues with challenges with having children, kids being able to get on the bus and ride. So, you know, one of my biggest concerns is a straight shot. I mean, but we have to let them on, and they're the regulations around that is pretty strict, that they get a ride for free and you leave them alone. So weren't any provisions in there about, you know, what if you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old? So, but we're very cautious. If a 3-year-old got on our bus, they would be calling into dispatch, and we would be sending a supervisor out to find out what's going on, but that would be unusual. I think most of them are 6+, and it seems like the younger ones ride with an older brother or sister when they do. So, but there are problems. Yes, it's been a lot busier to manage that since we've gone youth fare free. So, our straight shot services we've added, a lot of those modes of service have operating grant funds built into them. And then Route 16 from Nia Bay to Forks has grant funds in that service as well. So we did this several years ago when it was really necessary to keep our service going, and those funds are still available. So we're going to keep applying for those throughout those bienniums as they come available. One thing that really helps transits and rural transits of our size is that capital funding. Typically, everything we buy that's a significant project that's capital, our match is from 0 to 25%. So when we replace a heavy duty bus, for example, it costs $550,000 that lasts 12 years, 500,000 miles. We only pay 20% match when we go to buy those buses. So we apply for those through state and federal, or the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, for those funds, which is very helpful, because if transit had to pay 100% of their capital costs, the service would be 1/3 of what's out there on the road. So we only need to save for those matching funds. And I will say since I've been GM, we've brought in, I don't know, $20 million or so of grant funding to the community here, and a lot of those have been buses. We've got the newest fleet here that I have ever witnessed in my entire career, which is great. Keeps our operating costs down, and we have more safer, more comfortable equipment out there on the road. So also on that, like example, is the 3 straight shot buses that were purchased specific for that mode of service. Those were about that's about 1.9 million. So I think we paid 5% on that match on that project. So facilities. So this truck route facility that I'm at right now, our main base, which a lot of people don't even know exists. So that's when I talk about our main base. So where's that at? And then I remind them, and they, oh yeah, they drive by it every once in a while. So I don't know how people miss that, but they do. It's kind of funny. anyway, this base was completed in 1995, and I was brought in as a supervisor just prior to that. So my role was to go through the construction process with the contractor here, and also I set up the entire maintenance program for transit. Hired the mechanics. It was our first time we had our own mechanics. The mechanics that we had prior to that worked for the school district. And so we only had maintenance folks at that time. So it was very challenging. It was quite an undertaking, but I really enjoyed it. It was just exciting to open up this facility here, which at the time was a $7.5 million facility. And we paid again, I think 20% of match at the time. And back then it was a struggle too. We had to downsize and not follow through with a lot of things that were engineered through the build here, just because times were pretty tough back then for transit. We also applied about that same time for funds for the Forks Transit Center, which was on WASDOT property. Transit bought the property, and the city of Forks partnered with us on that. And so the park and ride that you see if you're ever out there at the south end of town, that is owned by Transit and jointly managed between Clallam Transit and the city of Forks. We do have more property out there on the towards the back of that property, and that potentially could be a future maintenance base for Clallam Transit for the west end, because we base our buses out of the Quileute Valley School District that is beyond capacity and has been for quite a while. Sequim Transit Center, another grant funded project. We built that in 2004. We partnered with the city of Sequim on that. And then the Gateway Transit Center was a pretty significant project that the city took the lead on that, but we brought some Federal Transit Administration dollars to the table. And so it had to have a significant transit element to that. And that's why that's how the Gateway Transit Center became, and that opened up in 2009. Prior to that, building that facility, we weren't really part of that. So we got brought in kind of during the planning process, and they discovered that we were able to bring some transit funds into that way. I think about $5 million. It was a $14.5 million project, and I think we brought $5 million to the table there. So we've got lots of partners throughout the community here, and that's one thing I'm going to miss after I leave, is working with everybody. I really enjoy all the people I work with throughout the community. I built that, of course, through maintenance and over the years of maintenance and being here this almost 39 years. But I just have met a lot of folks, done a lot of good things throughout the community. But so these facilities, we partner with the city of Port Angeles to maintain the Gateway Transit Center. And because the Gateway Transit Center, it has federal funds in it, it has to be owned by Transit. It cannot be owned by the city of Port Angeles. So we own the facility. We lease the pavilion to the city in our agreement. And when that property depreciates, if anybody remembers this down the road after I'm long gone, the city takes over the ownership, and then all the areas that transit uses are leased to the transit system. And the city would actually own this whole complex, but because of the federal requirements, they cannot. And so that is kind of a weird arrangement we have, but that's what's required. And so I think that depreciates in 50 years, but we don't know until the Federal Transit Administration tells us that or notifies us of that. The Quileute Valley School District, we partner with them in Forks at their maintenance base. So does Jefferson Transit and the Quileute transit system out there as well, the push. And so that facility that, like I say, we use as our base, but it is jam-packed out there. And so at some point in time, something's going to have to change. We're going to have to expand out there. We partner with Jefferson Transit. They operate service from Forks down to Amanda Park and hook up with Grays Harbor Transit. And so, as you know, Jefferson Transit is south of us and kind of, curves around out to the coast there. So that's why they serve that or provide that service, because it travels, leaves Forks and goes right into Jefferson County. So they have, more difficulty taking care of their people and equipment, everything than we do, because they're based in Port Townsend. Kind of a weird geographic, arrangement there, but and so that service they pay for with grant funds, and what we do is we pay half the match of $15,000 a year to support that service. And I'll gladly keep paying the $15,000 not to have to operate that. I'll have Clallam Transit operate that. Recently, we've worked with the Olympic National Park with the Hurricane Ridge, but we've also partnered with them on projects around Lake Crescent and other areas too throughout the county. The tribes, we work with the tribes quite regularly, more so Jamestown than anybody else. They actually pay for 4 trips from Squim to their campus, the Route 50, and they've been doing that since 2010. And so they apply for grant funding to provide that service, and we provide it, and then bill them, and they reimburse us for that. Work with the Elwha tribe, and with our service expansion change we have coming up, if we can ever get there, we're improving their services down there as well. And then we serve the La Push, the Quileutes, and then the Macaws and Nia Bay. And we really don't have any specific projects out there, but do provide service and ensure that we're meeting all their needs. And then many other partnerships throughout the county with municipalities and private folks. What else? So I've been talking about service expansion. So we have sitting on the shelf a service expansion that increases our hours of operation, our frequencies, and streamlines a lot of the routes. So one thing that's in there is like a shuttle that runs through town to Walmart and back, instead of having to take the Swim commuter to get to Walmart, which is going to be a big plus. We also have like right now, if you need to go to the Lower Elwha tribe, it's our west side bus that actually kind of deviates and makes that a really long trip. So what's going to change there is that now that the Elwha tribe has moved out to 101 with a lot of their facilities, we will meet them at 101 and go directly into their community and back out again. So those are just a couple of changes, but and that expansion is going to cost about $500,000 a year. And where we landed on that number is because we can afford that with our reserves, but anything more than that starts to add the need for more vehicles and more staff. And we don't have the room here. We're maxed out in our facility for as far as parking and equipment goes. So the $500,000 a year model allows us just to use our existing equipment, adding more miles to them and longer days. So that's kind of where we landed on that number. We are working towards zero emission transition. It's going to more likely be a combination of battery electric and possibly hydrogen fuel cell technology. The problem is our blocks, most of our blocks are 220 to 300 plus miles a day, and battery electric buses do not support that amount of mileage. So basically, you look at it as we would have to run an electric bus half a day, then put a diesel or another electric bus out the second half of the day in most cases, which I mentioned the diesel bus is about $550,000 an electric bus is about $1.2 million. So I'm not a big supporter of wasting tax dollars to just go electric. So there's a lot of costs involved in that, and a lot of challenges. So the hydrogen fuel cell technology, has more of a range of about 300, fuels up in about less than 10 minutes. And it's basically one battery instead of 8 batteries on a bus. Has a lot of advantages for longer mileage routes, but example is a hydrogen fuel station here on our site would cost about $5 or $6 million, which I'm certain we could get grant funding for, but we're running out of room up here. So it takes the footprint starts to encroach on our parking here. So, but we are working towards that. We are working on many different scenarios. Nothing's been completely decided yet. We do know our paratransit fleet is starting to depreciate beginning in 25 or 24. So that more than likely will be one of the first modes that starts to transfer over to battery electric. And I could go on a whole nother segment on the zero emission stuff, which would probably take another hour or two, but I'm not going to do that right now. But I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to that. Some other things we're working on right now, we've got a solar project that we're putting solar on this admin building. There's 2 buildings here and our maintenance building. And that's in progress. I think they're going to start construction here next month. Our diesel fuel tanks need to be replaced. Those are just because they're coming up on 30 years old. There's nothing wrong with them. That's about a $600,000 project. The nice thing is with the money we have in reserve, some of these projects are under $1 million or so. We can actually do those projects with our own funds, local funds, and do them much quicker, and then depend on the bigger projects to be grant funded. Our vehicle charging infrastructure is really challenging here as well. We're kind of have determined we're able to support about 12 heavy duty buses charging under a managed system throughout the night. It takes about 3.5 hours to charge a bus, but you can't do them all at the same time. But the problem is, in the meantime, we bought some Teslas, and we are also, like I said, we're going to start gravitating towards zero emissions for paratransit vehicles, and more than likely our microtransit, which is now going to further impact our power coming to this facility. And it's not unlimited. It's going to be maxed out at some point. So that's something that's going to have to be dealt with too. We're working on a park and ride project down potential park and ride project at River Road and 101 in Squim. We're doing a feasibility study on that right now, and environmental and engineering on that project. The property is being held with our name on it and is going to surplus. We have no idea how much that property is going to cost right now, which is going to be a big factor if we're going to move forward with that project. So, but that is in the works. And then main facility.
Hey, question on that, Kevin. So the park and ride at Squim, is that mostly intended so that we'll be diverting cars off of Highway 101 prior to all of these fish passages being worked on in Port Angeles? Is that, and how much infrastructure actually has to go into a park and ride? Can you do it where it's gravel, or does all that have to be asphalted?
So that piece of property probably could be put into a temporary state with with permission from WSDOT, but it's not going to be completed. If we were to get the go ahead on it here within the next few months, it's going to be probably 3 years before it's done.
Okay.
So yes, it's basically for future growth. You know, example is with the field hall down there, you're gonna have a lot more traffic coming to events. And we used to, the orchestra was pretty popular back in the day, that I think was up at the high school years ago. And we would pick up a lot of people from Sequim and bring them into the town and back. So, you know, that's gonna help that. But our ridership on the straight shots growing, that'll get those big buses out of going into Sequim, and they can just pull off the highway and people can park there and have more of a centralized location. So I think it's it has a lot of potential. The problem is the recent cost estimates on just improving that property right now with today's cost, $10 to $12 million, about $6 million more dollars than what I expected. Okay. So, and that's not including buying the property. So that's a big deal right now.
So, and that's without, you know, how much infrastructure is going into that? How big is it? First of all, how big is it?
It's 4.8 acres, and basically that's about 60 parking stalls with restrooms and some charging stations and an area for the buses to loop in and out and get in and out of traffic. I mean, there's not much there for that cost. So.
And so it's, that 10 to 12 million.
Yeah.
Without, and just restrooms is the only building.
Actually restrooms with a little kind of a tiny break room for operators they'd have their own private restrooms. At our facilities, the operators have to have their own private restrooms. So there'd be, you know, probably be Portland Loos, and then there'd be a little building that would be just for operators. So, yeah,
that's crazy. That figure.
Yeah. And so, you know, and we can, example is we lease the Laird's Corner Park and Ride from the state, but we're responsible for all the maintenance on it, but there's no cost to that lease, but we insure it and take care of it. Well, we could actually do a lease agreement on that property, but I don't want to spend, I wouldn't want to spend 10 or $12 million on infrastructure and not own the property, because the state could take it back from us with 60 days notice on those arrangements. So, and they would rather sell it as well, but I don't know what the price tag is on that property surplus. And when it does hit the surplus, it goes to municipalities, other municipalities first, which I believe would be the city of Sequim. Don't know if they'd have any interest in buying that. And then it could be offered to transit. So, yeah, that's, so anyway, we're doing we're about 60% through a feasibility study on that project right now. It was just over and above what I wanted to put a number on an engineer. And so, so I'm glad we did that. So
what's pushing the number so high? Is it the cost of asphalt?
It's everything.
Excavating
on that list. Yeah, I mean, there's asphalt, there's electric, you know, there's sewer that goes into that. And part of it is that stretch of roadway there's a dirt road there just after you get off of River Road that goes to the east, that eventually would hook up with Hemlock or something down there, where the tribe has a bunch of property. Jamestown bought a bunch of property in there. We would have to improve that section of the road as well. So that's in that cost too, with sidewalks and utilities. And you know, that has not been completely determined whose responsibility that is at this point, because we're still in the planning stages. So
gotcha.
And what else? Oh, and one other thing too, that just add here, if we get into this zero emission at you know, say 2 or 3 electric heavy duty buses and start into our paratransit fleet, not a big deal. But as we progress into that and start electrifying the entire fleet, or add a hydrogen station here, we're out of room, like I keep talking about. So one option would be for us to build a second level over the top of our parking area here at Clallam Transit parking lot, which I'm sure is a $15 million price tag today plus. Or we would have to buy some more real estate, and then any real estate we buy that's not within the vicinity is costs us dwell time to get there and security and everything else. So that's a big decision that this organization is going to have to make down the road as well too. So slide quit moving here. Okay. So just quickly, a few things we accomplished here over the past couple of years. We implemented the third straight shot run in August of 21, which is that run has far exceeded the ridership on the other two straight shot runs, and so the straight shot has actually exceeded its pre-pandemic numbers, which is great. The shuttle service to Hurricane Ridge was very popular last year, and we are planning on doing that again this year. Of course, we're going to be delayed a little bit, and we plan on running that till October 9th this year to catch the tail end of the or to catch the Crab Fest event that's going on. We did the zero fare for youth, and we extended that to Peninsula College students, which we didn't have to do as part of that youth fare free, but we got a little touch to that. We reduced our fares for rideshare program, the van pool program. So that example is a rider might have been paying $150 a month. They're paying about $75 now for that seat. So that really promoted that service. So we just subsidized it at a higher level because we can, and that was great. And so it gets cars off the road and gets people to carpool on those long trips. The shuttles in Forks and Squim were replaced with microtransit, which is basically like Uber, and that's been very successful. The Squim shuttle has always been really low ridership and just very difficult to figure out where that vehicle needs to go with all the different housing it's spread out, and if you make a route too long, it's not it just fails. People want to be on the bus for 20 minutes for a 5-minute trip. So microtransit has really it's in a pilot mode right now. We call everything a pilot when we start those things, but that just keeps gaining momentum every week. And we had to actually add a second interlink microtransit van out in Squim here last month just because of the demand. So very successful program. And then went ahead July 1st this year, we're gonna veterans now ride free. So I have had a lot of inquiries about veterans over the years. We have a discounted program that does support veterans throughout a lot of the nonprofits, but we wanted to further extend that, and so we came up with the veterans ride free, and my board approved that last board meeting, so we're on track with that. So, and I'm almost done here. I just quickly want to share that the Hurricane Ridge, we're putting in bus stops due to popular demand for the Lake Angeles Trail and up at the switchback. So here's just I work with the park and federal highways on this, and I was really impressed at how rapidly they got these projects from start to finish, and we're actually pouring concrete, I think, next week up there. So there is a picture of the ranger station, and we are going to do a roadway stop there both directions, and so they're putting some delineations and delineators and everything else to slow traffic on the way down, and the crosswalk down there, and there'll be a shelter there as well. And then this is the switchback trail of a shelter there. It's 2 miles from the top, so where there's really nowhere to park coming down the hill safely stop. So everybody that's, even if you're coming off the trail and you want to go down the hill, you got to jump on the bus going up the hill to the station and wait the 10 minutes before coming down, just for to make this a safe stop. So, and I just wanted to point out to Clallam Transit, we are part of a Watch State Transit Insurance Pool, and 2 years in a row we received the Safety Stars Award. And basically what this means that Clallam Transit has been a good performer in terms of agency auto losses. And we're the best performance in our size category by far. We beat everybody by a long ways. And we our competitors in that group is Everett Transit, Grant Transit, Grace Harbor, Highland, Link, and Wenatchee, Mason Transit, Skagit Transit, Whatcom, and Yakima. So those are the other transit agencies that our record was way ahead of theirs. And anyway, just want to point that out. That's a great honor, and then to get it 2 years in a row. So just kudos to my operators out there and what they've been doing with those traveling those 2.2 million miles a year and having a low loss rate. And there's a few photos of our Hurricane Ridge ribbon cutting. We've got a mobility coordinator we hired last year, Delaney Ronish. She goes out and meets with there's the Kids Fest, puppy praisers, teaching people how to ride the paratransit with their dogs properly, and that is it. Thank you. And so there's the photo of our Gateway Transit Center, and the gentleman there in the middle is Jim Fetzer, who's going to be acting general manager beginning July 1st. He's not happy about it, but he's going to be. So that's all I have at this point. I know that's a lot of info to cram into 50 minutes, so I'll be happy to answer any questions. So
I have a question about the positions you have open. You said you've got 10, and so what are they, and what's the starting salary? I assume as a government agency you have really good benefits.
Yeah, so
as part of the package as well.
Yeah, so the 10 we have open is we need 10 operators to actually put that new service we've got tabled on the road. Actually 8 would get us going. So 8 to 10 operators that we would need to hire nearly at one time, because if right now, if we say we hire 3 ahead of what we need, we have 42 operator positions. So say if I hire 3 ahead and it takes us 8 months to get the other 5 to 7, in the meantime, we don't have enough work for all those folks just to keep piecemealing in there. Okay, so it needs to be so I don't know what's going to change here. It's very difficult. So out of that service expansion, the couple things we added the Hurricane Ridge and we did the micro transit, but we can't do just segments of that because it's our whole service system wide is changing. So we have to do it flip of a switch, and we have to have those employees here trained and ready to go. So kind of a conundrum.
So it's people need to have CDL licenses to be hired, and then what's that compensation package look like?
So I believe they start bus operator starts out at $22.80 right now, which will probably go up after the first of the year. We get them their CDL here. They go through our training program, and we have our own training staff and then testers here locally. So it's a class B with a passenger endorsement restriction removed. I think the top wage for an operator is just under 29 right now, and that has PERS 2 retirement, which is a state retirement, and benefits for the full health for the employee, and then a percentage of health insurance for dependents. So yeah, it's good benefits. I mean, I say they're great benefits. I mean, I wouldn't be retiring at 58 if they weren't good benefits. So retirement benefits here. So yeah.
And it looks like Tim has a question in the chat. He wrote, go ahead, Tim, please.
Yes, is Clallam Transit all the drivers, maintenance, are they all Teamsters under the Teamster Union?
No, the drivers, mechanics, and maintenance workers they're under the ATU 587, which is the same union example Seattle County Metro has. Yeah, so they have not been. We have not had any other union in here since I got here in '84. So
okay, I have one other question. Another question I had is, how is is Clallam Transit? I'm coming from Eastern Washington, so
Mhm.
I'm very familiar with Ben Franklin Transit.
Yeah.
And a lot of their mornings and afternoons were working with all of the local or the local school districts, alleviating some of the requirements that the local school districts struggle to get Class B drivers to make all the routes. Transit was picking up a lot of that. I saw that you had Valley, that you were working with them. Are you working with Squim and Port Angeles in addition to that for morning and afternoon?
No,
times?
we're not doing anything specific to taking the place of school buses. We do transport a lot of kids going to school with our routes as they do work for that.
Okay.
But we haven't, no, we have not done that. So, and again, we used to hire a lot of the school district drivers in the summertime for temporaries so our people could take vacation. And that's no longer happening because their workforce is reduced, and we're struggling to keep our workforce going here too. And we have there's times where our drivers or operators are working a lot of overtime to keep the buses on the road. We have not had to cancel service throughout this pandemic and after throughout that time. We did go 6 weeks during the pandemic when it first started. We did go to reduced service for only 6 weeks, basically because parents could take time off to take care of children, and that's what we had. We had a lot of parents here that had to go take care of their kids. So, but as soon as that was over with, everybody wanted to come back to work. We've been going full steam ever since. So,
okay. Are your paratransit, are they Class C license?
no, the paratransit, they don't require the CDL. So the paratransit operators make less than the fixed route drivers. And so I look at that as you're driving, you got a 15 less passenger vehicle hauling, 2 or 3 people around, a fixed route bus, you're hauling $1 million worth of cargo around. I mean, you got 40 people on that bus, and then, it's a larger vehicle, and you have the time points too. So kind of the difference there, but we have increased our paratransit wage quite a bit over the last few years, because it was privatized and subbed out, and
Okay.
we brought it back in the house, and then have been providing them some realistic wages. They were paid very low before they came back in here.
Yeah, and that's largely what you see through a lot of transits. But I'm a firm believer in transits because community is only as strong as what their transit system is. Everybody looks at it; it should be moneymaker, but it's it's more the public service for what the community is.
Yeah, it's a public service. So.
All right. Well, hey, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing with us some background, and we really appreciate all the work you and your employees do for our community. And so, yeah, as Tim said, it's a critical service that we all rely on. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you.
Does anyone have any further questions for Kevin?
No, but I've met with him and he runs a great shop. You should see his maintenance shop. It is, you could eat off the floor, and everything is organized, labeled, super safe. He's got big, huge buses that actually put chains on by pushing a button on the buses. It's so impressive out there. I just couldn't be more pleased with his leadership. I think we're gonna miss you, Kevin. Thank you for running a great organization and service for our peninsula. So,
well, I appreciate that. Jim's been right along there with me for 4 years. That's he's been in transit longer than I have, and he'll be applying for the job here coming up. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. If anybody ever wants to take a tour, let me know before I go here. I'd love to show off the shop. And again, the shop was one of my pride and joy for years, and I'm really comfortable now with the team I got down there leading that. They, as you saw, or as you mentioned, they're taking great care of it. I don't worry about maintenance anymore. They're doing a great job down there. So.
Right.
yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Kevin. Have a great day, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.